The night looks long.
Well, it's funny, Tom thought that too. It didn't look that long to me,
I
but
went to the tree ordinance, and I mean, there were a couple of things I think that maybe some explaining. Besides.
it's a great start. My feeling is here's a great start to the process. Planning commission now. Let them do some stuff and bring it back to it, and we'll give them some specific direction. Right? It's a great start. Yeah.
Oh, your mic is on. Fine.
Hello. Oh, but it sounded like a recording, huh?
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Pam, can you please do a roll call?
Councilmember Feist,
Here.
Councilmember Reardon,
Here.
Councilmember Swift absent, Vice Mayor Cirque,
Here.
Mayor Gunselman.
Here. Can you all please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. I'm going to open a public forum. At this time, the public is permitted to address the city council on items not appearing on the agenda. Comments may not exceed 5 minutes. In accordance with state law, however, no action or discussion may take place on any item not appearing on the posted agenda. Would anyone care to comment on an item not on the agenda? Frank would.
Thank you, Madam Chair,
I don't,
City
think it's
Council
on.
members. Frank Cunha, Sutter.
I don't think it's on or
Is there a,
the button.
There it
there we go.
Okay, start again. Frank Cunha, Sutter Creek. I'm here tonight for two separate things, actually. The first. Yeah. Okay, I'm here for two topics, actually. The first one is Miners Bend. I just wanted to give you a brief history on Miners Bend. I don't know if all of you were here in Sutter Creek when we built Miners Bend. This year's going to be the 10-year anniversary. About 12 years ago, Ed Arata and I acquired a bunch of old mining artifacts from Lincoln Mine and Argonaut Mine. And we came to the city and asked them if we could build a mining park. And so after a couple of years and doing some conceptual drawings, so on and so forth, some engineers' drawings, Sutter Creek Foundation stepped up and said that they would fund building the Miners Bend Park. The engineer's estimate was $168,000 to build the park. Sutter Creek Foundation actually raised all of the money to build the park through donations, selling bricks, a lot of community support. Sharon Brown and I pretty much were the project managers of the park, and it took us a year and 3 months. The park was dedicated by the then Mayor Swift on June of 2016. When we started this project, it was with the agreement with the city that Sutter Creek Foundation would fund the park, get it built, and the city would take it over as far as maintenance. I know the city's strapped for money, always has been. But there's other ways that that park can be maintained. When we did the park dedication, I don't know, there was probably 300 to 500 people that showed up. Most of them had worked on the park. The Native Sons were extremely helpful with the labor. But everybody in the community got together and built that park. It wasn't Sharon, it wasn't I, it was just a community event. Everybody was real proud. Have any of you walked through the park lately? It is an embarrassment, okay? The signs, you can hardly read them, they're so dirty. The bricks that people paid for to help build the park, it's filthy. It needs to be pressure washed, the sidewalks. Sharon and I took care of the park probably for the first 5 or 6 years. Both her and I had injuries and could no longer do it. So actually my wife and I went down 2 weeks ago and the tree was hanging down. You had to duck to go underneath it. So we went down, we trimmed the tree and we weed eat it. There's got to be a way. Actually, City Manager Tom had a great idea when he first came into the city, and that was getting a community projects together to maintain the city. I'd like to see that happen again. I know, but there's just a lot of work that needs to be done there. The rock wall is, I don't know if people are taking souvenirs, but actually there's a bunch of rocks that they have pulled off of the rock wall and it's disappeared. So there's some spray painting that has been done on the stamp mill. I don't know if you guys noticed, but there's almost always somebody at the park. The benches are so filthy, you can't sit on them. So I think as a city, we should be maintaining that park better than we're doing. So I just ask your support in figuring out a way to get this done. I'm not blaming anybody. I know times have always been tough, but that's the entrance to Sutter Creek. When people come through here, that's what they see. So I think we can do a much better job of doing that. It's going to take a lot of work the first time. We're going to need pressure washers. We're going to need weed eaters. We're going to, there's just a lot of stuff that needs to be done. I think if the spraying would get done earlier, we wouldn't have to be weed eating. That just creates a mess in the end. So the spraying should be done early on. I actually went down and sprayed half of the park. I think I did it towards the end of
30 seconds, sir.
February. And no weeds grew there at all. And then I couldn't do the other half. So anyway, that's enough on that subject. But I would really appreciate the support of the council to make Miners Bend a proud place for the citizens of Sutter Creek. The second thing is, excuse me, Night Foundry.
Time is up, sir.
Excuse me? Excuse me? Oh, anyway, Night Foundry, there's been a lot of work done putting in the new water line, but the street in front of Night Foundry is getting really, really destroyed. We're afraid that somebody's going to trip and fall on one of our open houses and get hurt. And we really don't want to see that happen. If there's any way that the city can, I'm sure I can get Night Foundry to chip in and help seal coat at least the stretch that's right in front of Night Foundry. So that's just something else I wanted to bring up. We really should be looking at least that couple 100-foot section that people are walking on all the time. They did do a good job of patching where they cut the pipe in, so it just got done. So thank you.
Thanks, Frank.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Martin Ryan, City of Sutter Creek. I am strongly opposed to the City of Sutter Creek's consideration of amending its city ordinance to allow the creation of a marijuana dispensary within the city limits and would be the only one allowed in the county. My opposition is based on my research, professional training, and experience, which has produced the following facts. Fact: in the 1970s, marijuana's psychoactive THC potency levels averaged 1.3%. Today, with indoor cultivation and breeding, the THC potency has increased to 15 to 30%. And products like marijuana-based oils, waxes, and vapes can now contain THC at 50 to 90%. Another fact: the California Department of Cannabis Control stated in 2024 that human brain activity develops until age 25, and that daily cannabis use, near daily cannabis use, or higher potency use has been linked to schizophrenia, depression, and suicide. Fact: San Diego County reported in 2022 that 43% of all suicides among persons aged 25 and under involved THC in their systems at the time of death. Fact: the California State Auditor reported accidental ingestion of THC by infants and children resulted in significant increases in emergency room visits. Children under 5 were the most vulnerable, with ER ingestion cases increasing 1,477% from November of 2016 to 2023. The National Poison Control calls for children 0 to 12 years for THC edible exposure jumped 752% between 2018 and 2023. Fact: a 2021 report noted that 33% of fatal accidents in Mendocino County and 24% in Santa Cruz County involve positive tested marijuana drivers. Nationwide, a 2025 study by the American College of Surgeons noted that 40% of deceased drivers tested positive for active THC. Fact: California's recreational marijuana laws allow people 21 and older to legally purchase 1 ounce of marijuana daily for recreational use. An annual medical marijuana recommendation card can be purchased online for under $100 after a brief online consultation with a doctor, allowing daily purchases of 8 ounces or more. A fact: California law also allows 18 to 20-year-olds to obtain an online medical recommendation for daily purchases up to 8 ounces or more if recommended. The FamilyRecoveryCenter.org reports that 8 ounces of marijuana can produce over 600 cigarette-sized joints, with a current street value of an ounce going for between $100 and $200 in California. A fact: a 2019 Addictions, Drug, and Alcohol Institute report stated that THC and CBD can react negatively with many common and critical prescription drugs by either magnifying or negating their intended effect. Examples include anti-anxiety, antidepressant, antipsychotic, pain, high blood pressure, cholesterol, and blood-thinning medications. Fact: a UC San Diego health study highlighted an 1,808% increase in cannabis-related ER visits for Californians aged 65 and older between 2005 and 2019. Based on the above facts, a marijuana dispensary in Sutter Creek will also impact other city and county agency resources, such as medical first responders, Sutter Ambulatory Hospital, other police departments, CHP, the sheriff's office, and county mental health services without any compensation to them. A marijuana dispensary may provide some financial boost to the city of Sutter Creek. However, in my opinion, the negative community health and socioeconomic impacts far outweigh any projected gain. I thank you for the time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Martin.
And I do have copies here.
If you give them to her, she could give them to us.
Thank you.
Martin.
Hello, City Council. Thanks for letting us speak again. I just wanted to copy that one article that debunked a lot of the articles that Josh had given us before. This was a peer reviewed. You can see, don't worry about all the details in there. If you just want to rush to the conclusion on page 18, it shows that it is going to increase the adolescent population's availability in Sutter Creek. So that was just to show that I don't know how much we can trust the articles that Embark is feeding us, and for that matter, the projected gross receipts that you guys are going to discuss later. But anyway, back to the medical problems and the community problems. And I just was wondering, in 2016, we had 9,432 citizens of Amador County voted against legalization of marijuana. Of these, 477 reside in the wonderful jewel of the mother lode, Sutter Creek. Therefore, I asked the 3 council members that are in favor of going forward with this dispensary, are you truly representing your constituents? And I don't mean to put you on the spot, but we got to think of that and do some self-evaluation in all of our lives, all of our professions, et cetera. It's just the pursuit of an extremely controversial potential moneymaker. It could have big ramifications, which you've just heard about from a highly esteemed sheriff with a lot of experience. Next, I quoted the entry, let's see, the one that I quoted had 5 highly educated authors, 41 references, but this was in contrast to Embark, which had a non-repeated research letter that was 5 pages long and was not even entered into any journal. So just remember that. But the thing is if you allow this to go in to the city limits, now that you know all of what the ramifications are, you will be personally responsible for increased use of treasured adolescents using marijuana. We need these adolescents to turn out to be brilliant citizens to help us solve these budgetary problems and all these problems that loom before us. Just today on 4/20, yep, 4/20, UC San Diego School of Medicine did a study and they published it today. 11,000 adolescents that they tracked from age 9 and 10 all the way to age 16 and 17. They did the study assessed memory, attention, language, and processing speed. They tracked them and they also did hair, urine, and saliva tests to see how much they were using. Just a really astounding, really well-organized study. That one is on national news today, actually. But the conclusion was teens who used cannabis showed restricted growth over time compared to those who did not. Initially, these kids were just as bright as their peers, but then as they used it, they continued to use it, they plateaued, and their memory didn't increase, but all their peers who weren't using it, they got more and more memory, better cognitive scores, et cetera. And so, this is going to be a big problem because it says that they will be exposed to it a lot more easily. The conclusion in that journal that you have before you is on 18, and it says if you keep it banned, they're going to have a lot less chance of being exposed to it and use it. So that's a really cool study. It's called ABCD study, Adolescent Brain Cognitive Development. You'll be hearing about it on the news tonight. Okay, so then anyway, I would just say if you could do some self-reflection about, maybe this isn't the right way to go. Maybe there are other places that we could raise some money. I feel for you guys, like I've said before, because we don't want one adolescent to be exposed to this debilitating substance. Adolescent use of MJ can totally change the trajectory of their cognitive development. Their dreams of getting a career of their choice may vanish because they never reach their full cognitive potential. And so having said that, I'm like 69, 70. I don't want something like that on my resume. And I know a lot of you probably don't either, especially if you're up for re-election in November. Please consider it, and thank you again for letting me speak.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else care to address the council on an item not on the agenda? Okay. We're going to move on from the public forum then to the city manager's report.
Yeah, good evening, everybody. So as I usually do, I'm going to go through some updates kind of pertaining to our annual goals. So on the wastewater front, Dan LaFontaine and I are meeting with the design team tomorrow for a fairly long meeting. It's a stage in the early design process where they give us some alternatives analysis, really looking at costs and before we really settle on a preferred direction that they will flesh out the design in more detail. We also have had a productive discussion with AWA and the Rancheria. There were some legal issues on the sewer line expansion that had prevented it from being 100% completed. I think getting everybody in the same meeting, we made some good progress. And so we're waiting on some red lines to be exchanged, but it seemed like everybody was in agreement that should get moving forward again. And then
Was there new leadership there, Tom?
at both, yes.
Yeah.
So we have the existing folks at the Rancheria, so the new CEO is not involved.
Yeah.
And then the interim director at the water agency is involved.
Yeah.
So. And then Claire and I last week met with some of our elected representatives to beg for money for our wastewater plant. I think it was fairly well received. So we met with our state senator and our congresswoman, and we'll continue to update them. And we told them, we asked for money for planning for this year. And we told them we'll be back for next year for construction. On the economic development front, I had a meeting today with the interim president of Columbia College. It's been our third or fourth meeting. Again, he remains very interested. They have started an entrepreneurship program at Columbia, and he really feels like it would best be located in Amador County or Sutter Creek in particular because of the closest to Sacramento. So we are discussing a possible MOU of kind of supporting each other's efforts. And he's also mentioned that he may have some funding he could throw our way, kind of related to these programs that they're starting. It's also been underway for quite a while, but there's this backbone internet broadband project called Steven. It's been underway. They were initially going to go up on the bypass, and we asked that they consider going through town so that we would have the ability to connect people to fiber in the future. We met with them, was it last week? It's starting to blur together. I think it was last week. And their initial cost estimates have come in much higher than anticipated. And so they're asking us to consider allowing microtrenching, which is a different technique. Again, you're laying a fiber optic cable and a conduit, very small. Microtrenching is about 2 feet down, so it's a lot less steep, and you cut a narrow groove and you fill that in. And so a lot of their costs had to do with repaving roads and things. So if they proceed with that, we'll bring that to you guys for approval. It'd be an exception to our standards. A lot of broadband projects do use this technique, but just a heads up on that. And again, I think broadband and high-speed internet is kind of ties into our whole economic development initiative, for the future. And then on the dispensary front, Embark has indicated that they have a conditional lease on a property, but they still have not submitted any application to the city at this point. On the code enforcement front, again, we're working with Attorney Derek's firm. We're expecting some recommendations on our ordinances, and hope to bring those to council in kind of the May timeframe, possibly June. And then on some of our capital projects, tonight we have our long-range financial forecast. At our next meeting, we're going to bring a list of kind of extra projects beyond kind of the day-to-day activity of the city to discuss with the council, get some feedback you on priorities. I mean, as usual, there's no way we can fund everything. And as one example, we've been working on the Sutter Hill Road estimate. We're getting $610,000 from impact fees from ACTC. It's looking like the cost is going to be closer to $800,000. So, we would propose probably bridging the gap on this one with Measure P. But it raises the question about how many other projects can we afford? And,
Is that the 800,000 with some sort of shoulder and sidewalk, or no?
no sidewalks. Again, ACTC only pays for paving. So the engineering and design work, and fixing storm drains and things, and the shoulders, but it's not a sidewalk.
Is Campbell's willing to be able to participate at all in any of the helping finance
Helping finance?
for the Sutter Hill Road to complete? Is that what you're?
I would imagine they would bid on the project itself, but yeah, are you suggesting they'd help pay for it?
Since it would assist them, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think so. That's an
Okay.
interesting idea. Yeah.
Hey, Tom.
Yeah.
So you're talking about bringing a list of potential projects, and we'll have a discussion about some type of prioritization. Just so I'm clear, that will include perhaps some additional road projects over the next couple of years so that we can queue up the P money and decide where and when we might want to point
Yeah.
that at.
Yeah, we have some smaller ones that
Yeah.
could possibly get done in this next year.
Okay.
But really trying to build a list, not just of capital projects, but things we've talked about. Like if we get more serious about code enforcement, we're going
Yeah.
to need to fund that, weed abatement,
Right.
vehicles, those kinds
Sure.
of things.
Okay.
And there's some before and after pictures. So the top one, we had a pretty big tree come down. It took down some other trees. It was fairly dangerous where if we started to cut it ourselves, we were worried that trees would fall and injure the workers. Dan contacted a couple of companies. We got it. The second picture on the right, it has been chopped up over the weekend. So that was good. Also wanted to share this one. It looked like we had a sinkhole in the cemetery. I got a very concerned voicemail about a coffin being exposed. And so there's the after picture where we filled that in. So, we weren't aware of it, so we were glad we got the notice. And then the last picture there is, we're trying some new material for potholes that the county has recommended. So we'll see. It's supposed to last a little bit longer. And then we do have, an updated city website that we're currently testing. It hasn't gone live, and we're still working on that one, testing it.
Is it Civic Plus anymore or no?
It is, yeah. Just we were on an old platform that they no longer support, so they moved us to their new platform.
So it's more of a technical back end upgrade versus a end
Well,
user experience.
Yeah, we didn't change the graphics or anything yet,
Uh-huh.
but it gives us a lot more control where we can change things in the future. Then we have this aquatic waterfowl race coming up this Saturday. Hope everybody will come. It should be a lot of fun. Again, it really supports our nonprofits. There's a big nonprofit fair. I think some council members might be in a dunk tank as well. So, and then we have these other events coming up. Actually, I think I didn't put it on here. I think Kit Carson is going to be in town on Friday. We have, Mother's Day carriage rides. We also have our Police Foundation dinner. It's the first one. That's coming up May 22nd. It's going to be in the auditorium. This is a nonprofit that formed to help support our police department. And then another new one I put on there, June 14th. One of our tenants, the Foothill Conservancy, is having a feast and fundraiser. And then on your agendas, we'll bring you a small update to the safety element. You guys already passed the local hazard mitigation plan, so this will just update it to reflect that. As I mentioned, we'll bring these project priorities to you first. We'll have an update on the pool. Things are going well on that front, but figured we'll bring that as a small item.
They are or aren't.
They are.
Oh, okay.
So, yes. And again, we have our audit in process. So when that's complete, that will come to you guys. This time of year is when we do the delinquent sewer billing notices in order to get them into the county on time. Last meeting, you gave feedback on the surveillance ordinance, so we should have a draft of that. And as I mentioned before, there may be some other ordinance updates to help with code enforcement. And then we'll move into the actual draft budget and budget approval.
Tom, just to get clear on these potential ordinance updates around enforcement. So Derek, in your office, somebody's looking at that, reviewing those things. Are they looking for weaknesses, strengths, so that we can build up our ability to have more meaningful discussions with some of the people who might be offending?
Yes, looking at whether we can add any tools in the toolbox. We do have a toolbox full of tools.
Yeah.
And it's not insufficient, but we can always add that 1 or 2 or 3 extra tools to really, that's the analogy I would use, to address specific situations. And that's what he's looking at.
Because that's what I think we've been up against, is that in these situations, it seems like time goes by and nothing gets better.
Yes, correct.
So we're looking specifically at how to make that better.
Correct.
Great.
Yes.
Any other questions?
Good.
Good.
All right. Thank you, Tom. It's hard. No presentations tonight. That takes us to the approval of the minutes from April 6th.
I have a clarification on the minutes. It would be item number 10 under mayor and council member reports. I reported on the air quality board discussions, and in the minutes, it says the matter is trying to find other ways. The other matter is trying to find other ways to offset service costs, such as putting in a drop box or putting in a voluntary fee within the letter. And I think I intended to mean the garbage bill and the sewer bill, communications that would come out from the city to residents, that there could be a voluntary way of being able to offset the costs.
Got that, Pam? Anything else to, any other changes or?
I don't have anything. Susan, you good? So with Julia's changes, I would move to approve.
I second.
There's a motion and a second. Pam, will you do a vote call?
Councilmember Reardon,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Cirque,
Aye.
Councilmember Feist,
Aye.
Councilmember Swift absent, Mayor Gunselman.
Aye. We have one item on the consent agenda, the product list or the project list for SB1 funds.
I move that we accept the list of projects for the fiscal year funded by Senate Bill 1.
A second.
Any discussion? Pam?
Vice Mayor Cirque,
Aye.
Councilmember Reardon,
Aye.
Councilmember Feist,
Aye.
Councilmember Swift absent, Mayor Gunselman.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, we have, we'll open a public hearing to extend the moratorium on temporary residential uses. This was the moratorium previously known as short-term rentals. Just so anyone in the audience that might be new to this knows, this is just the ordinance that we put in place temporarily until we have a new ordinance. So we're not proposing banning them outright. And there's very specific amounts of times that we can do this. So we have to extend it again if we choose to. I'll open a public hearing in a minute. I don't think we really need to do a staff report on this. If this is the third time I believe we've done it.
We do need a unanimous vote tonight because it is a 4/5
4/5.
requirement and only 4/5 of you are present. So that means all 4 of you will need to vote in favor to approve this tonight.
And this one is for 10 months.
This one extends us to the 1-year mark.
Right.
So 10 months and 15 months from the expiration, which gets us to essentially the day before the last meeting in 2027.
And when we come up with our own ordinance, we can end this at any time.
This ordinance would be by its terms repealed, but we'll provide for that in any ordinance that we adopt.
Right.
That actually, thank you, because I was curious if we settled on an ordinance, are we forced to continue into the
No.
10
No,
period?
that
Thank you.
ordinance will expire, but we will include language to make that very
Got it.
clear if we
Great.
adopt a
Thank you.
permanent ordinance.
Before I open the public hearing, does council have any questions or comments?
Just answered it.
I don't. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and open a public hearing on this. Anybody? I'm going to close the public hearing on this. Anyone care to make a motion?
I would move to extend the moratorium on temporary residential uses.
I second.
Pam?
Councilmember Reardon,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Cirque,
Aye.
Councilmember Feist,
Aye.
Councilmember Swift absent, Mayor Gunselman.
Aye.
Motion carries.
4/5.
Okay, the next item, 9A, is the consideration of moving to an appointed treasurer. We have a staff report on this. We did bring this back. We had this at a meeting with only 3 of us present, and there was no motion made. I'll just speak because I requested bringing it back. We didn't make a motion. We came to kind of a conclusion at the end that we wanted to have more oversight, but we sort of skipped the middle of the discussion where we figured out how to have more oversight or what that would be. So, Tom, are you presenting this?
Yeah, I just have a couple of slides, and then our current auditor, one of the partners from that firm, is on the meeting as well and can make some comments. But so just to summarize again the staff report, and there was a little bit of a minor change to the report, but cities have to have a treasurer, somebody responsible for those duties. You can't just eliminate that position. But many cities have switched to a finance professional, tends to be a member of staff who works for the city. So over time, the the elected treasurer has decreased from 42% of cities to about 30% of cities in California, meaning 70% have an appointed treasurer. In our county, Plymouth voted in the last election with about 2/3 of the vote to move to an appointed treasurer.
So they have treasurers, they just don't, they're not on the ballot. They're appointed by city council or the
Yep.
city mayor or
Right.
somebody.
And again, I think in Plymouth, it's one of the city employees. So, some of the reasons for this are it really allows for operational efficiency. Mason's here tonight. He wasn't here during the previous discussion, but he can talk to, the amount of work that he's doing already to create these reports and provide the information. Having it be appointed allows for direct oversight. They would typically report to me. And you can also specify professional qualifications where in elected office, you can't have requirements for accounting background. Basically, anybody who runs can be elected. There's also costs. If we use existing staff, we would stop paying for these elections every 4 years and we would stop paying the stipend. So that by itself would give us an ROI within less than a year. And then there's also kind of the time and effort that staff takes to support an elected treasurer. It's not really familiar with our financial systems or our financial details.
Tom, excuse
Yep.
me, I'm not sure if it was in this report, but it was in the last one. And I think it's relevant. Our treasurer now does not intend to run again.
Yes, correct. Right. So our current treasurer's term is up in November. Again, I'm kind of summarizing very quickly, but the idea would, if you guys supported the move, would be to put a measure on the ballot in this November. And again, the reasons to do this, I think having a qualified person in that position just makes it a lot more productive and useful. Because we're a general law city, we can't impose qualifications outside of state law, which is things like you need to be a certain age and a U.S. citizen, that kind of thing. If we move to an appointed position, the treasurer becomes effectively an employee of the city. We're allowed to specify professional job qualifications. And the city council could appoint an existing staff member, or you could appoint a person outside who meets those qualifications. If it was outside, it'd be less than full-time. It'd be some kind of part-time position. So, what we're recommending is that you would provide direction to us to place a measure on the ballot, to make it an appointed position, and that we'd prepare the necessary resolutions, if given voter approval, to change that position. So happy to answer questions. And then again, I asked our accounting partner, Ryan Domino, who's here, and he can answer some questions as well if you have some for him.
Tom, I have a question. It says we're not allowed to require job qualifications for this.
For an election, it's like you can't say a council member has to have a bachelor's degree to
Okay.
run. Yeah.
But there is a job description that lists the skills that this job would entail.
I mean, currently
require.
it's an elected position, so I don't think there are any, no.
We don't have a job description for this?
I'm not 100% sure, but even if we did, if somebody wanted to run, they could run regardless.
That's the point, huh?
Yeah.
That's the difficulty.
Huh.
There could be if it was appointed, whether it be a staff member or otherwise.
Yeah, I had noted that he had said that. But I don't think this came out in the discussion from the first time, that there was not a job. There's got to be a job description.
I think I don't mean to put words in his mouth, but I think what Tom is saying is, be that as it may, there could be a job description, but the person who runs doesn't have to go out and campaign and say, look how I meet all these job descriptions. And no one would necessarily pull up that job description and say, oh, I wonder if this person meets. It becomes kind of I don't know what. I think I wasn't here when you guys had the discussion, but what I did is I went back and I listened to it. And I was glad that, I'm sorry, what's the fellow's name who's with you tonight?
So Ryan's here.
Oh, Ryan, I'm glad Ryan's here because I wanted to hear from the auditor what kind of like, well, what problem are we trying to solve here? And what's your experience with this? I know you can't necessarily make recommendations in this space, but I would appreciate your background and your guidance to the extent that you can provide that.
Yeah, my pleasure. Good evening, everybody. I apologize for the informality of my appearance on camera here tonight. If you can see me, I'm at a conference, and so I'm working off of my phone right now, which is kind of fun. However, I'm happy to answer your question regarding what my experience has been with other organizations, other cities that I work with that have elected versus appointed treasurers who are actually also staff members. So just to give you a little context, LSL works with approximately 100 different local governments, mostly in California, but throughout the country as well. And
Can I interrupt you just for a second and
yes,
ask, on your side, do you have the option of turning your volume down a little bit? Because we don't seem to be able to, and you're pretty loud.
oh, I'm sorry.
It's cool. It's cool, but I just thought I'd ask if you can.
I can move my phone further away, so I apologize if I'm a little
It's
loud.
okay.
That'll help. Unfortunately, we can't control any of this.
Yeah.
Okay, that's
Go
okay.
ahead.
Okay.
Carry
Fine.
on. Carry on.
Awesome. So, so I work personally with approximately 30 different cities right now. And so the majority of the cities that I work with actually have their treasurer as a staff member. They have a treasury department or a individual treasurer who is also a member of the finance team rather than an elected official. Most of my clients that have this set up, to Tom's point, they do it because it allows for additional internal controls. There's more oversight, and it allows the city to really set qualifications for the treasurer position, making sure that it's someone who has a finance or accounting background. In most of the cities that I work with, the treasurer position is really the position that is charged with oversight of the investing that the city does, as well as reporting on the results of those investments. So that's kind of the function for the majority of the cities that I work with, and they ultimately either report to the city manager or some other individual within the staff, rather than being a appointed or an elected official. And again, I think that's mainly due to ensure that the person who's controlling the city's investments and making those decisions is qualified to do so. And I'm sorry, I feel like you had another portion of the question. What was the other half of that?
Well, was there were there any deficiencies or anything like that in your audit that brought this to mind in terms of why would we?
Can I jump in with an in-between question, actually?
Okay.
Can you speak to, and I don't know if we want you to do it, Ryan, or maybe Mason, but if what we're doing right now, how that differs from what you just explained?
Okay, so this might be a little bit more of a question for Mason, but as of right now, the functions between finance and treasury are kind of separated, but they're both integral to your financial reporting process. So I'll let him kind of chime in more as to the details of that. But to answer the question, what brought to our attention was we're still conducting the annual audit for fiscal 25. So this is our first year working with you all, and we're still working on the 2025 audit. And one of the concerns that has been flagged to us and brought to the attention of staff is that the June 2025 bank reconciliation, in our opinion, it wasn't effectively done properly. And I don't want to use certain words, but sometimes it's hard to get around it. In our opinion, we think it could be due to the fact that the process involves the current treasurer, who is not a finance professional, essentially. And so getting those reports to the finance team, to Mason, to the city manager to review has been kind of a challenge, which resulted in delays. And anytime you have delays in your bank reconciliation process, that is a from our opinion as auditors, a control deficiency, as that is a key means of ensuring that transactions are recorded in the right period and nothing's missed, or there's some sort of errors that have crept through.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So now what's the question for me?
Well, let's see. I'm trying to kind of bridge the gap from the last meeting to this meeting, and Julia, it's just you and me here that we're here.
Yes.
There were a couple of things brought up by the council members that were here and a member of the public that's very informed about reasons we should have this position. And in my experience, and being the person, the council person that comes into the office the last few years to see this process, we're not doing those things. So, if we want to have a treasurer, an elected treasurer to provide oversight and have a outside look, another hand on it, another set of eyes, that's great. However, as I see it right now, the treasurer gets reports from our finance department and gets a bank statement and puts them together and puts it on a sheet. So none of that finding is really independent or oversight because it's all coming from an internal source, is at least how my brain saw it. And I don't believe the treasurer, I know the treasurer doesn't check any of our expenditures, and I don't think that our treasurer has anything to do with our investments. So the reason I wanted to bring it back is if we want to have someone do those things,
Right.
we can have a discussion about that.
Right.
But that's not what we have.
And so Mason, as that was just characterized, that's yet your understanding, you concur with everything that was said
Well,
in
so
terms of how it works or doesn't work?
Myself, I can speak for myself. I am not the treasurer's supervisor. I do not manage the process. It is meant to be the way it is set up right now, and the way we abide by it now is as an independent person coming in and reviewing the data. And that's how I deal with it. That's the way it's designed, and I'm going to let the design do its thing. I do provide the data to the treasurer for her to do her process. She comes on a Friday typically, and she'll do whatever she needs to do with the reports that I give her. Again, it's the position is to oversee what I do and my process. And so my responsibility is to journalize transactions, make sure things post in the proper month, expenditures, revenues, all of it. The timing of it all is crucial for the bank reconciliation as well. And so I provide her all of the ammo, essentially, she needs to be able to do that reconciliation against what I do. Whether or not that's being done effectively, I am not overseeing her.
Fair enough.
But I will say that, I do assist that position, I would say, significantly for her to be able to perform her duties. There's very little pulling of the data herself to review what I do, which if you look at it from an objective point of view, that could be problematic because the person who's doing all of the work on the back end is providing the data to her for her to review, but whether or not she's going in the system and reviewing it, I'm not sure. I can't speak to that, but I could see on an objective point of view how that could be problematic. Because as the one doing all of the back end labor, and then me generating all the reports. I mean,
you mean if you were trying to pull one?
If I was nefarious,
right? You could make it look a certain way and hand that over.
Yes,
right.
Absolutely.
Because the data is all coming from you.
Correct.
Right.
So which is the
Thank you for articulating that. I think that's what I was trying to get at.
I mean, that's essentially the process. Now, what she does while she does her, again, I can't speak to that.
Fair enough. So I'll tell you, if you're interested, when I ran the local hospice for 10 years, we didn't have an elected treasurer, but we had a treasurer. And this was someone that I invited to come in who was a past board member who had a background in finance. And every end of month, she would sit with a Mason type person who worked with us and review the ledgers and the journals and all that kind of stuff and ask questions and serve as that kind of independent oversight, so that the person that I had in the back office, at least somebody who knew what they were doing, would come in and question it and ask, and, and if there was anything weird, they'd bring it forward. And I liked that. And I'm, today I'm on the finance committee for ACTC, and I do the same thing. I mean, I sign checks and I review the bills. They don't do it up there because they've decided to go this way. But that independent oversight thing, I felt comfortable with. And again, but what would be key to that is that the individual had, had qualifications to do that job, and a willingness to show up and do it in a timely manner so it didn't hang up the whole works. So that's what I'd be in favor of is, let's appoint somebody and find somebody who wants to do it and have them come in and do it. Versus the elected thing seems problematic to me.
So again, while we have Brian here, maybe not to put him on the spot, but we're a very small city. We don't have a treasury department. And so our checks and balances are, essentially between Mason and myself. How would you see it working if Mason took on the treasurer duties in terms of our financial controls?
Right. Well, there's going to be oversight from you as well. But also the treasurer's reports, from an internal control standpoint, from what we would look for as your auditors, these are reports that are provided to council. So there is a level of oversight wherein council is reviewing these documents. They're seeing the investment and treasury and cash activities each month. So there is, a level of oversight that is happening from an audit perspective that's still there. And then, having a detailed level of involvement from yourself reviewing Mason's work, potentially if he were to start, being in this capacity or in this role, sounds like, and from what we see, he's doing most of the legwork already. So having a detailed review of, from someone who is in the know, knows what's happening, that would be from my perspective and from my opinion. I know you guys are a smaller organization, but that would be stronger than having somebody who's maybe less qualified or not in the know or not as engaged reviewing that financial information.
So I still want to make sure that I understand this clearly, that if we have an elected position, we cannot, and we do not have job qualifications for the city Sutter Creek treasurer.
Right.
We don't have a job description for that? How is?
It seems to me there's tasks that the person is appointed to, but we can't, because they're an elected person, anyone can run. So when they got the job,
So their duties are
Yeah.
described, but their qualifications are not.
All right, but an appointed position can be someone that the council appoints, and we can have a job description for that position.
You can require the person to have certain qualifications or skills.
Okay. My key is that I don't want to burden Mason any more than we already have. As long as there's an oversight position, like what you described, another set of eyes to work with you and Mason. But I'm just looking, and, I go in occasionally, and, Mason's like up to his gills. And so I would only be in favor if the appointed position could be, have a job description attached to it, and that it would go through council. Otherwise, that's why I voted the last time not to go with just to have the finance supervisor and Mason all in one position. So I believe the position should be separate from what Mason's job responsibilities are.
If I may interject, I would say that that's actually probably the ideal setup. However, and I've seen it done very successfully in other organizations with appointed treasurers, because you can set those qualifications. You can pick someone knows what they're looking at, and can provide if that independent look. So, in my personal experience, that's usually a very successful setup.
So now that we're talking about job qualifications and expectations and descriptions and tasks, that means we have to pay.
Well,
We do already.
Right, the stipend. So I'm on the finance committee of a couple of the boards I'm on. Dan's on the finance committee of ACTC. And it's, you're appointed by the rest of the board and it's part of the gig. So,
Mhm.
the stipend that exists already might be sufficient to cover that.
Well, and then
That's what-
also there would be an unburdening of Mason because you're generating these reports, which takes time if you were to take on that position.
I think unless the person was an employee, Mason would still have to do the work he does today because they don't have access to our system.
right. When I walk in, the folks working there, they have piles of stuff already for me to review.
Yeah.
You know, invoices, checks, journals, all that stuff. So
Yeah.
but that's
That's
normal work.
That's,
I-
I mean, my end of month process would stay the same. I
Right.
mean, that's just, it has to be that way.
Right.
Um,
Regardless.
Okay.
He's got to do.
But someone could come in and spot check it
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I'm eager to as much, I mean, I'm not trying to hide anything. So if anyone wants to
Right.
come in and do the job, I mean, that's fine with me.
Well, and
I
then
mean,
to a certain extent, if you have.
They're willing to
someone-
deal with me, as long as they're willing to deal with me.
If you have someone with strong financial planning experience too, or, accountant, that could be helpful because it would be an easier communication.
Yes.
Feel free. I'm not.
Are you,
I'm not the public.
are you opening up
well,
public?
yeah, we haven't opened it up to the public quite yet, Kathy.
Oh, okay. Never mind then.
Uh,
Sorry.
So that would be an option. And then we could, if we decided to do that, you'd have to get something on the ballot. And then we would have to get serious about, okay, what does it look like? What are those qualifications,
Yep.
background skills, abilities, all that kind of stuff?
Right. If it passed, we would create all that and then you would have to appoint somebody
Okay.
to the position.
And I just want to also point out that a ballot measure, we would need to just make sure, and this is just me thinking way out, we're going to want to make sure we budget money for elections process because any ballot measure costs money.
Yeah.
And it's been going up.
Yeah. I think
So-
we got it. It was $1,500 for this measure.
Yeah. So just something to keep in mind when we get to that
Thank
point,
you.
just to keep in mind.
And if there's a point and when there's a point, as things cycle through that we didn't have anybody who currently had the appointment, we would have to be prepared to either appoint a staff member or one of us or,
Well, yeah, we'd have to have it covered
Yeah.
right?
one way or the other.
Mhm.
Well, couldn't you?
Ryan, would that pass muster?
Yeah, that would pass muster. For a lot of times, what I see too is that cities that have the appointed treasurer position, usually they appoint a member of staff to be treasurer. Is probably the most common scheme that I see.
I guess
Scheme I use.
that just seems odd to me because the notion of separation of duties and independent oversight is gone in that case.
Mhm.
Through the way I'm looking at it. And as you mentioned, Mason, if you are nefarious and up to no good, you could make that stuff look any way you want, right?
But really, the idea of oversight and another set of eyes is not existent in what we're doing right now either.
I understand that.
Yeah.
I totally understand. It's just that intuitively, it seems a little weird that you would appoint the person whose job it is to write the checks and pay the bills and
Well,
reconcile everything on a monthly
Can't approve
basis.
the checks and I have access to the bank accounts and I
Say-
can.
say
I
that
can
again?
see- Mason can't approve the checks.
Okay.
Right? And then,
And I can see the checks too.
right, even if he's
Can
doing
you do
something
that?
like a wire, he initiates the wire and then I have to approve it.
Yep.
So I can see like the bank totals. And if I saw a treasurer's report that didn't match the money in the bank, I would spot that.
Okay. So I get it. A certain amount of these controls are just happening as a matter of fact is the point you're making. And Tom, you're following up with that. Thank you. Okay.
So, to Dan's question, Ryan and Mason is, systems like our new one and these RMS systems, is it all just kind of built in? And that's why now such a high percentage of cities appoint a staff member. So really the position itself has kind of become
I mean,
outmoded.
Ryan, I don't know if you want to speak to that, but I mean,
Yeah. You can go first.
At least in our system, it is all batched into one product. I mean, you can do it all. I mean, you're supposed to do it all in there. That's the point. And so I could see why, and with the oversight system that we have now, so like between me, Tom, you guys, you all see the reports that we generate too. So there's really 3 levels. I start it, Tom reviews and puts it on the packet, and then you all see it as well.
And also there's a departmental thing too, right? Before any check is written,
Yeah.
the department head submits that and then they get it back and okay it, right?
Yeah. So if we're talking the AP process specifically, the process goes as this. So my department will receive an invoice and we will date it, code it, enter it, and we route it to by department. So if it's like a dispatch fee, for example, since he's right there, we'll date it, code it, route it to Jim. Jim will review and approve. Then it goes to Tom. Tom reviews and approves. Then that's when it's finally done. And then my department will go back and we will issue checks. And again,
But it's even split within your department. The person keying it in is different than
myself.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yes.
okay.
Yeah. So there's multiple levels of breakdown there.
Right.
And I'm not a signer on the account, so I can't just write a check without going through X levels. And then I can't, my name's not on the check. So there's also that.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's all by design.
Right.
And then it all comes to us.
Yeah.
And them.
Yes.
All I was going to add to that, so to Mason's point, most of the controls over the checks that are dispersed and those types of things, at almost all of my clients, I don't think I work with a single city wherein the treasurer or the treasury department has really any oversight over the checks going out or the money coming in. In most instances, if not all of the instances, the treasurer position is more or less just looking at the cash on hand each month. They're not really performing that independent review that you all are talking about as what you're looking for. In most cases, all the disbursements are reviewed and approved by either someone in finance or the city manager's office, depending on the size of the organization.
Susan, were you reaching for your microphone?
No, thank you. Well, I did one more thing that I think due to the fact, and it's sort of reiterating what I said before, but due to the fact that we can't ask for whoever runs for this position to have any professional financial experience, it seems better to have someone that does, that's appointed, so that we have a level of professionality that we aren't guaranteed under the current circumstance.
Yeah,
Council, are you good for now?
I'm good.
Okay. Public, did anyone have anything? Kathy?
Kathy Castillo. I don't believe we've been introduced.
He's from our auditor's office. He just went over some of the findings from the last audit.
What audit firm are you with?
This is really
LSL, LP.
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
This is public comment. Kath.
I just want to I'm sorry, what,
Ye-
Yeah, this is a-
You address us, Kathy.
okay. Um, anyway, I think a lot of the problem or the issue that gave rise to this whole discussion is you had a treasurer that did not really completely fulfill her responsibilities of the treasurer's office and role. A lot of her reports, they were just completely inadequate. There was, the oversight function that an independent treasurer can provide and safeguarding the assets of the city. These functions simply were not being performed under your former treasurer. And Tom, thank you very much for sending me that email last month. Unfortunately, I was so busy with tax season that I was unable to respond in any way. But I will say that a lot of the arguments that you made, they really did stem from the fact that the treasurer position has just been, it's just been substandard. A treasurer is an independent oversight function, completely unrelated to the governance of the city. We don't have to, a treasurer doesn't really have to answer to the staff, and it doesn't have to really answer to the city council because you are at the same level if you are a treasurer. And because of that, you do provide a very critical function of oversight and independence. Secondly, a finance director doesn't always have the time to invest idle cash. They don't also have time to do the safeguarding of the city's assets. It's not just your liquid assets, it's your physical assets. And that's what a treasurer's role is the safeguarding of city assets, okay, or any government assets. And that just hasn't been done in the, by the person in the previous position. So that's really, I think I would encourage the city to keep the position elected. I realize you may now need to appoint a treasurer until the next election, but we've always had an elected treasurer. And it does work if you get somebody in with the necessary qualifications. And why burden staff even more, or why add to your responsibilities? I think the city of Sutter Creek has a number of good candidates if we put the word out there. And you can specify minimum qualifications. But there are a lot of people in this city that would be, I think, interested in being treasurer. And they would have the qualifications. We do have a lot of talented people in this city. So anyway, that's just my 10 cents. I do slightly disagree with the auditor. I do think that the independent oversight function cannot be overstated. Many times when I have come across fraud and audits, it's always been the finance personnel that have been involved with almost without exception. And because there was a breakdown in the internal control function. You can have all the internal control policies set up that you want. You can have them down on paper. But really, if you're not following them, you're going to run into problems. So I don't know. I don't see
30 seconds, ma'am.
any point in weakening our internal controls of the city. So thank you.
Thank you.
So this has been a really good discussion. We do have a big agenda tonight. So I don't know where you guys are, but I would just, or just keep an eye on the clock as well.
Right.
Again, I would be in favor of first primarily, step one, whether this goes to an election or not, is have a job description with the list of care.
So again, I want to be clear. When you say job description, in my mind, there's two parts to the description. There's the responsibilities of the role.
The
and then
function.
And then there's the qualifications.
Correct, correct.
Again, legally, if an elected position, the only qualifications we can have is they have to be 18, they have to be a US citizen, they have to be a resident, and they have to be a registered voter.
And so let me finish.
Yeah.
Whether we went that route or we went to an appointed, that we have a clear understanding or an update, whatever needs to be done, of a job description with qualifications.
But we can't do that if it's elected, is what I'm trying to tell you.
And so therefore,
Yeah.
then I would be in favor of an appointed position, but again, making sure that we know what we're looking for in that position. And if we don't have it, I think that needs to be addressed.
Well, we must have some sort of task list because we've had a treasurer.
No, I mean, the
draft.
city's ordinances define, again, the responsibilities of the role at a very high level. I would say it's not very detailed. But again, nothing on qualifications. So that's something we would have to add.
I agree with Julia, and with that in mind, I would make a motion to approve the resolution.
Second.
I would.
Go ahead,
be-
Julia.
um,
Discussion.
Yeah, so I would, under the written consideration of the two recommendations to discuss, provide direction to staff regarding placement of a measure on the election ballot to make the office appointive. I think that's where.
Well, the resolution is in the agenda and it's written for a reason, the way it's written, I believe. And everything you're talking about would necessarily come next, but it's got to get on the ballot in order to move us to that
Correct.
solution.
Correct.
So I think we're saying the same
Yeah.
thing.
All right.
Yeah.
So we have a motion and a.
We do. Any more discussion? Nope. Pam?
Yes, ma'am. Councilmember Reardon,
Aye.
Councilmember Feist,
Aye.
Councilmember Swift absent, Vice Mayor Cirque,
Aye.
Mayor Gunselman.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay. Takes us to 9B, the short-term rental ordinance.
Yes, thank you. So in front of you tonight is
Thanks, Mason.
is a draft short-term rental ordinance. This was put together based on the conversations we had in the February meeting and the 2 meetings in March. Those recordings were linked in case you wanted to relive them. So we took those comments and the direction and then drafted the ordinance that was attached. And this ordinance is kind of, again, a starting off point to continue the discussion. And also we're looking for direction on how you would like to move forward with it, whether that be an ad hoc council group or send it back down to the planning commission for their review. There was 2 kind of topics that were left open-ended and we needed direction on, and that was one, what is the total number allowed? How many short-term rentals were allowed? And how will we divide that number up within the city? So in the ordinance, I did just divide it into 2 categories, our historic district and our non-historic district. And I am recommending a percentage versus a hard number, as that will change with our population. And since the council would like to see a cap on the number of permits that we issue, the second topic then is wait list and how we will handle that. So in the ordinance, we have it as a first come, first serve when the wait list, if the cap is met. And so we could change that. We could, wait until we have X amount of permits, review them, pick the strongest one, or, review permits when we do our annual review and then our review every 3 years, our more in-depth review every 3 years. that's when we could determine if any of these permits would need to drop off of our active list, and then we could take from the wait list then. So again, that's something either the council can work on tonight, ask the planning commission to work on, or the ad hoc committee if they choose to do that. Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Erin.
I had a couple questions just for clarification and then a comment. One is the terms reasonably prudent business practices. One is on page 5 under number B. The owner operator shall use reasonably prudent business practices. To me, that was, well, I could probably dodge a cannonball using that if I needed to. Is there any suggested? I came up with possible, instead of reasonably prudent, either responsible or the term judicious business practices or common business practices or city approved business practices rather than reasonably prudent. My dog
Yeah.
liked it because that means he could eat anything he wanted.
Yeah, that's a good comment. I think, again, we have a straw man here that we can take that note. We can make sure we define it as one of the terms. And, just off the top of my head, I think it would be something the city considers reasonably prudent. And that could be
Yeah,
in the
that's good.
Yes.
definition.
Yep. That makes
Yeah.
sense.
Right.
Then my other, then I had two questions. One is the planning commission, this is a number S on page 36. The planning commission shall have the authority to oppose additional conditions on the use of any short-term rental unit to ensure that any potential secondary effects unique to the subject short-term rental unit are avoided or adequately mitigated. What would be an example of that would require all those words?
I think we just add something like that oftentimes on all conditional use permits so that it gives the commission an opportunity to add something, that might come up that they might have thought of.
Additional flexibility.
Yeah.
That's the written word as we've gotten up to it at that point.
What
I'm trying to think of. a good
pops in my head
example.
is if maybe the property was on the creek or, just if there's something geographic, maybe
That makes
or if
sense.
it's, adjacent to
Right. Shared
school
backyard.
or I don't know, but
Yeah.
it just to give them the flexibility if something does come up to be able to be proactive.
I don't,
about it.
I don't mind that. I was just trying to come up with an
Yeah.
example. I could think of like, oh, maybe it's a historical building and they need to have more protective, coating on it, CODING, or
Yeah, something like
Mhm.
that. But I think it's just that catch-all for, because it's a standard set of conditions of approval. And
Yeah.
it's that little catch-all that we
Okay.
can add something else that might come up during public hearing.
All right, thank you, Erin. And then the last one is number F on page 34 regarding the parking off-street. It reads, overnight guests of the short-term rental unit may not utilize more than 3 off-street parking spaces for each overnight stay in the unit. If the short-term rental is in a condensed neighborhood, 3 spaces is going to take up quite a bit. Is there a possibility to consider that the unit or the guests of the unit may not utilize more than 2 spaces?
These are off-street,
Yes.
so like
Yep.
in the driveway,
Yep.
not
Yeah.
on-street parking.
So
Right.
that's actually
So-
part of the reason none of these
Yeah, they're
I
not
need to
public
read
parking
it. I need
spots.
to read it.
Yeah. So it's already in there that you
My
have to
bad.
have parking
Right.
to have a
It's-
short.
So that's just the.
Sorry, I
Just-
used up your oxygen.
I wasn't actually sure why it was there because,
Yeah.
if there's a driveway, who cares how many cars are in it?
I
But
agree actually with that. Now looking at it, and it doesn't, so the chart of, yeah, if you can hold more than 3
Yeah,
and you
like
have,
I have a teeny tiny house, but I can put 6 cars in my
yeah,
driveway.
or you have a group of 4
long as they're-
friends driving and
long as-
meeting, they're gonna have 4 cars if they're coming from.
Right.
I think this is again, to avoid large parties.
Yeah, that's,
So
No,
I think you
agreed.
do want to limit the number of cars.
Right.
We have a limit on the number of occupants as well, right?
Yeah.
And we have a limit
Yeah.
on daytime visitors, so there
Right.
can't be a giant rager and then only 3 people sleeping there.
If they
Right.
carpool, maybe.
So
but-
we might want to change it though to um cars and bedrooms being equal. 'Cause if you have a
I've read that in other
four-bedroom-
ordinances.
Yeah,
that
if you have a
the
4-bedroom
number of
house.
Parking spaces equates with the number of bedrooms.
Yeah, I'm just thinking of, the girls' weekend where it's a 4-bedroom house, 4 people show up, all driving different cars. They all can park there.
Yeah.
So now that I kind of think it out.
So that,
Um,
and that's pretty clearly stated. There's not number of cars for number of bedrooms.
High level, I think this looks pretty good. Let's go just back to maybe the 4 of us can kind of weigh in. I think there's a couple of things we can maybe indicate here, our preference, and then I think we can push it on to the planning commission to fine tune. We had talked about maybe needing an ad hoc. I don't think that's really necessary, and I think it might kind of be starting again all over again. So just high level,
Right.
how do you guys feel about that?
Claire, I agree. I am,
So we still need to describe, define the percentage though.
we can put in,
Susan, are you comfortable with that?
I really like this.
Yeah, the only thing I wonder with just high level, are we good
Yeah,
with not
good
having
with
an
high
ad
level.
hoc? And I did speak to Jim earlier and he felt the same way.
right.
So I think that what we need to do right now is just not even fine tune, just indicate our preference on a couple of the bigger things and send it on to planning commission. And then it will ultimately come back to us again, but we'll save everybody time and angst if we give them pretty clear direction on what we want to do.
And I think just to clarify that point, Claire, and make sure that I'm on the same page, I think the guidance we want to give them is in this conversation we're about to have where we have these open things with, we're going to propose maybe some percentages, this and that. But what we don't want, I don't think, is for them to go back to the beginning and start all over again. So we're going to talk about things like a cap. What is the cap? We're going to talk about percentages between the historic district and the other. And then Aaron, what was the
Waitlist.
waitlisting business? So as long as I've got the mic, I can do my part in 60 seconds.
Okay.
I'd say figure out what the percentage is against existing housing that gets us to 35 as a cap, just throwing it out there for you to consider.
Total units at 35.
Units at 35. And then just as a starting place, there's a number of ways you can do the percentage. You could do the 35% against existing housing stock within historic and 35% against other, or you could do 50-50. Let's just do some reasonableness testing against what the current situation is and make sure we don't blow everybody out of the water, and let the planning commission come up with some recommendations around that.
So
That's what,
you would want to see a calculate, let's say there's 500 within the historic, so 35% of that, and 1,000 not, we know that's not enough,
Right.
right? 35% of that, or to figure out what 35% is, it's
Overall.
40, and we divide
20.
20 here,
Right.
20 there.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
And
do
one-
the math, ask the reasonableness questions, what makes sense,
Okay.
and then
Right.
have them come up with a recommendation.
So one quick comment, just reacting to that, I think, the historic district is also the business center, so the number of houses may be smaller, but you may want more there. So-
Absolutely.
So maybe the 50-50 makes sense.
Absolutely. That's why we get the numbers and then we
I
ask the
I think if you
questions.
did it the 35%, you were pushing Airbnbs out into the residential
Yeah,
neighborhoods.
and I don't think that's what anybody has said they want necessarily.
Okay.
And if one of our goals is to make it a viable business, the desirable area is the historic district for tenants.
Yeah, good point.
And it would still be, so wait a minute, I have to do backwards math now. If it's 35%, 30, well, I think we were talking more like
Well, you know, it's
2%. They're 2 to
35
50%.
units, not
35
35%.
units. Okay.
Yes.
If 35 units is,
2.5% of the
I did this
existing.
with tens earlier when I was doing it in my mind. Okay, let's say we have 300 houses in town and we pick 3%. That's 9 houses, right?
Yes.
Yes. And let's say 100 houses are downtown and 200 houses are outside of downtown. Then that would be 3 of these in downtown and 6 of these in not downtown. If
you
we
use
split
that,
it with the
yes.
percentage.
Yes.
If we did it 50-50, then it could be
4.
4.5 downtown and 4.5 out of town. And I'm comfortable with that.
Exactly. Exactly.
That makes sense?
I'm just not sure where we're going to get that half a house. That's all I just.
Feel it. ADU whiteboard. So we're aiming for 35. We're just saying a number now to try
We're
to
just
figure
saying
out
a
math in
number,
our brain.
pass it on to planning commission, let them noodle on it for. a
Okay,
minute,
got it.
Let them come back to us. But
How many houses are there in town total?
Trying to look up.
But that would be the benefit of using a percentage.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I'm just wondering if we have like this theoretical goal of how many Airbnbs we want.
35 is.
that's
what-
why I
Good
threw out,
to
that's
attach
why I
to-
threw out 35, because in our discussions over the last, what's it been, 14 years? No. Over the last several months, that number seems to come up a lot. So I've heard that number a lot.
Okay.
Maybe it'd be good to know the total.
So did I see a lot of nodding around the 50-50? Is that where you guys ended up or?
Yeah,
I have a feeling 50-50 would probably work out best, but I would propose that somebody do the math.
yeah, let's do the math. I think that 35, we had talked about 20 was when we were going to start to think about it, right? And I think when we will be far under 20 when we start to clean up the existing properties that aren't active, and that's built into this. So it'll be a long time before we hit 35.
So we have 1,404 residential units within the city. That includes multifamily. And so at 35 units, it's 2.5%.
That's what I thought it was, 2.5%.
Yeah.
And like you just said, there are probably 3 to 5 short-term rentals that have permits right now that are on the market for sale.
Yeah. So I think we're about 14 active right
Right.
now.
Yeah.
So what we will ask the planning commission to do is how they want to distribute that 2.5, how they think we should distribute that 2.5%.
Right. And we're leaning towards 50-50 historic and otherwise,
Okay.
just for their information.
So that would be our recommendation or starting point.
Yeah.
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 And then they hammer it out.
Yep.
And then as far as the waiting list, I do think if we had, we're far, far, far from there anyways, but should we hit a point where we have 6 on a waiting list and 1 slot opens up, 15 years from now or something, it would be nice to be able to consider the next few, to see the best fit, especially because part of the reason in doing this is it's not administrative, and we're enabling the planning commission to consider things like density in a neighborhood and,
Occupancy.
occupancy and viability and all those things. So they ought to be able to look at a few against each other instead of just the next one. And if, Aaron, you think you can communicate that to the planning commission rather than, next
Those
up.
factors were important in our discussion, especially I think the density that we don't have, STR, within the same neighborhood and all. So.
And
I
that's
think
why
those
we made it
factors need
not
to be protected.
administrative.
Correct.
And yeah, they're all going to go to the planning commission and they can think about that before they approve any of them.
What about, when we get a waiting list, would that be a time for staff to initiate kind of an auditing of the existing ones we have?
It seems
That's gonna happen
perfectly reasonable.
annually too.
Yeah.
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 Besides
any
the
number?
annual audit, Erin? In addition to?
Yeah.
And yeah,
And then we would have two waiting lists. We'd have a historic
Yep.
waiting list and a non-historic
Yeah.
waiting.
Although I don't think if we're not at the cap, it doesn't seem like maybe you would need an annual audit because there's no reason to ding people if there's no waiting.
Yeah.
Well,
I
although
think
I
to
think
make sure people are
Yeah.
being responsible in their contracts and following through.
you can
you
take
know,
them off our rolls, they shouldn't be.
If they haven't been used for,
It doesn't
Nine
make
months?
much difference to me. I just thought maybe it would not be a good use of time, but I'm cool either way.
I think it's a good
So-
thing just to have every year, just to.
So I want to make sure I'm interpreting what you're saying right. So if we do have a wait list, Claire, were you saying we should not do first in, first out? We should look at everybody in the wait list and try to
I
score
think
them somehow?
If a slot opens up, then I mean, I don't know if you'd look at the next. Well, I guess we have 2 waiting lists now. So if you could look at the next few
Why not look at all of them?
or all of them, yeah. I mean, if they're still
But then,
active, I'm sure you would notify them to see if any of them are still interested.
but then what would be the criteria? Would it be like, well, like on
Yeah,
the
so
planning
maybe we
commission,
should just-
like, well, they're my friend and that, I like that house. And I mean, not just.
I guess it would
saying-
be first in, first out to consider, but they can look at all of them. And if the first one fits the bill, I don't know. Give that to planning commission. They have to make the decision.
Right.
So permits have to be renewed every 3 years. They're reviewed annually, renewed every 3 years. So that might be the time when we're renewing the batch reviewing the batch that renews, that may be the opportunity to review along with
The wait list.
the wait list. And then it's
Mhm.
kind of a competitive process.
Right.
Correct.
That's a good idea.
Good.
And then otherwise first comes, first serve. I just think it
Yeah.
would be best to not have it be arbitrary.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
So did we have agreement on a direction to give them to put into it? Is that right?
Staff,
Julia?
are you comfortable with,
Erin, you good?
with how to direct them?
Mhm.
Thank you.
So
Thanks,
the
Erin.
review.
Julia, you
would
good?
happen
I'm
with the
good.
renew-
Susan, you good?
Okay.
Dan?
Absolutely.
Okay, we don't need to make this is just direction. We're not making a motion. Okay, tree ordinance discussion. Should we take a 5-minute break? Yep. Okay, we're going to take a 5-minute recess.
Okay, I just shared with you the, I just made a copy of the ordinance and put the notes in it that we just heard.
We're coming back.
Sounds good.
You meant,
That was good.
did you
Yeah,
mean on
that's
it?
easy.
Nice to hear. Well said.
Yeah.
I almost turned to you in by 5.
Okay.
I still think. Yeah, I guess my notes just
I can't sit that long.
what I was hearing.
I'm a terrible student.
Yeah,
I cannot.
2.5%,
Ugh.
50-50 split. I think the planning commission should discuss what happens in this like 3-year review period. And then maybe we do have a lighter process when there's no waiting list. But this idea of it does make it a little uneasy, this idea of we're gonna score the waiting list, because like you said, it'll be like, oh, I know that person, that's a nice house. But they're on a waiting list, you have no idea.
Well, I know, but I guess they're like, whether, like, it's not.
Sure. But if you have a waiting list, there's a 1-bedroom studio on Main Street, there's a 5-bedroom house, how are we gonna score that? And they're like, oh, I know this person, that guy's a fake, it's like too arbitrary. Maybe we have a pitch contest, they have to come in and pitch the planning commission.
short-term rental thing.
So I was texting with Carl, but I haven't talked to him.
Well, at the beginning, I think it did. Yeah.
He's just. Their consideration. And then this thing coming up, this tree thing, oh, sorry.
Oh, no, you're fine. Oh, okay. I don't need.
Yeah, but very short term.
You know, any pleasure?
I do.
Are we good, guys?
Yeah.
Oh.
Did Susan come back from her phone?
Huh?
Susan come back from her phone?
Yeah, she did.
Yes, ma'am.
Before we move on to the tree ordinance, for short-term rentals, is there any public comment?
There we go. Byron Damiani. I just had a few comments on the ordinance. I think it addresses most of the major points that council wants. We keep throwing out this number of 35. I'm not sure where that's really coming from. And again, I think we brought that up at an earlier meeting. There really aren't 1,404 units available to become Airbnbs. I mean, that's including all the apartments, all of the mobile home parks, all of the multifamily housing, most of which is tenant occupied, and most of which probably is going to have restrictions against tenants subletting for Airbnb purposes those homes. So if we take that and take a percentage of it, you're really just putting more of these into single family home in Sutter Creek. There's 809 units in Sutter Creek that are single family homes. We're already at 2.5% with where we are right now with the moratorium. So if you want to consider going more, I think really you should be closing off the historic district at this point. As I said, I live in the historic district. There are short-term rentals within one block of my house right now that I can walk to. So if those are just going to get pushed more into single family housing, assuming we had 1,404 potential units when we really don't, I think you need to look at the actual single family homes, which is what's going to be most likely to be rented here. And you may want to add something in the ordinance too, to say that this isn't intended to override any lease agreements or any tenant restrictions that landlords have. So I go rent a 2-bedroom apartment and decide I don't need a roommate. I'll just rent the other room out every weekend as a short-term rental. Well, my landlord may not agree with that. And we want to make it clear the ordinance isn't going to override something like that where they say, well, the city will let me do it, so I'm going to do it anyway. So those are basically, I think we're really already at a cap, at least for the historic district. If you want to go higher than that, then it should be outside of the historic district, because that's a very limited number of homes and the majority of these existing ones are already there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Byron.
Thank you, Byron.
So can I ask a question of staff? In terms of using the numbers that we're using, is this typically how it's done? How do you decide, to Byron's comment, how do we decide what is the number?
So in the ordinance, we don't restrict it to just single family residences. So multifamily residence can be, the only thing that cannot be is an ADU. It cannot be used as a short-term rental.
So by law, by California law,
Yeah.
all of those other places
Yeah.
are eligible to be STRs.
Yes, and then, sorry, I just closed it, but let me reopen this. Purpose, B, this chapter is not intended to provide any owner of residential property with a right or privilege to violate any private conditions, covenants, restrictions applicable to the owner's property that may prohibit the use of such owner's residential property for short-term rental purposes.
Okay.
That's what I was looking for.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And then you need the owner's signature on all of this. So, the owner would have to sign off on you as the tenant being able to operate a short-term rental out of their rental property.
Very good. Thank you.
I do think we'd like a motion just to say you want to move this to the planning commission with the parameters discussed or something like
Right.
that.
So I would make that motion, and to clarify, we've already talked about the specifics that we're asking for, and the job of the planning commission then is to review our recommendations, do their independent study, and come back to us with their recommendation, at which time we will have a final discussion, or as close to final discussion as we can get in our lifetimes. Fair enough?
I think we're there.
Okay.
I second that.
Okay, any more discussion? Pam?
Councilmember Reardon,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Cirque,
Aye.
Councilmember Feist,
Aye.
Councilmember Swift absent, Mayor Gunselman.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, tree ordinance.
Okay, tonight the staff is recommending that this item is for direction and discussion only. In October 2025, we came to the city council to start the discussion on tree removal and preservation of the trees within the city. Our municipal code does not provide much guidance on that. It really only addresses undeveloped parcels and when tree removals are allowed and things like that. So the city council at the time asked for staff to work on an ordinance to bring back to the city council for review and kind of just to help move this conversation forward. We did draft an ordinance instead of starting with just discussions, and I thought that was an easier jumping off point or place to review this and see what we like, don't like, and changes to it. So the ordinance tonight, the draft ordinance, which is attached, proposes to establish regulations for protection, maintenance, and removal of trees within the city, and recognizing certain trees as protected trees, both native and non-native kind of heritage trees within the community. The ordinance defines key terms and then also lays out the permitting process, which would be staff is recommending a staff level permitting process unless the removal of trees is in corporation with a larger planning entitlement. So a site permit, a site plan permit, tentative maps, things like that. Then that would all be wrapped up together and presented to the planning commission. Some key points in the ordinance is the protective trees, which are the native oaks. Other native trees, we have pines, sycamores, buckeyes, and it establishes a size for those trees when they are protected. And then trees that are not considered native trees, but are of a certain size and how they're protected. We also have the application process. Like I said, that would come to staff. What would be required in that? A replacement policy. Again, this is all just kind of key things that we can discuss throughout the ordinance. And then depending on the size of the tree you remove, what will then be required? And then violations and enforcement of the ordinance. There's something so if Tom, you want to move to the kind of our key questions for discussion for tonight?
It's very simple.
And just to note, the numbering on the ordinance is all off, so those are all just kind of the whole, like,
Okay.
They look good. though.
placeholders.
They look
Okay.
good.
It's something for you guys to react to. And I think, again, the first question here, some council members asked us to work on this. So, does the majority want tree protection in the first place? I think get by that, then we can start talking about parameters and things.
Should we answer that right now?
Sure.
Just go down the aisle? I do.
Yes, on one.
Yes.
Yes.
The other thing to think about, again, kind of back to what we talked about, short-term rentals, is this framework about equity and ease of administration and cost. And so this question about species and size, obviously the smaller diameter you have that are protected will have a lot more trees. So we put in there, I think, 6 inches for the
Yep.
native species. It's something just to talk about. Think about, we don't have a lot of data. If you say how many trees are 10 inches in diameter, I can't answer that question.
Right.
But
Can I right away? The one thing, this is great, thank you. But with regard to the blue oaks, and I've seen like some 200-year-old ones come down in my neighborhood, which would obviously be protected under this, but they're super slow growing. So I just on a rough search looked it up, and a 10-year-old tree would only be possibly, wait, I just lost the number. I think 1.7 inches in diameter after 10 years of growth. And then they can oftentimes only grow 1 inch a year. So under that, it would have to be like a 50-year-old tree. So maybe we could make a specific with regard to that tree, because that would to me be a real heritage tree for the area.
Susan, that's a great catch, and it brings up in my mind on the same subject. There's probably other examples of things, right? And so I understand you don't have all that data today, and believe me, I don't want it. I want the Planning Commission to have it, because I want them to study this and do that kind of work where they could bring back to us recommendations on all of these things based on some real numbers, so we'd have a better sense of what would the impact be to the community and to the trees themselves within reason.
yeah, and to be clear, we did use real ordinances in
Yes,
nearby
no-
cities. These
no,
are not
Yeah.
totally made up. But
No, I like it, and it makes perfect sense to me, but I'm not an arborist. I don't want to become an arborist.
So for example, R is protected trees, and 1 is the native oaks, and that has the different oak species in there. And then 2 is other natives, and it shows we have special small natives. So you're thinking maybe when I discussed with the Planning Commission about this, we add like a special small oak natives category too.
put blue oak in that.
Yeah, or I don't know but the specific species, I don't know the scientific term, but the blue oak, like in particular, grows the
Yeah,
heck
the-
of slow. So, and there's some that are around, so they're trying to make little new ones.
Right.
I agree with Dan, with the details of the size and the trees. I'm not the specialist, but I do understand that we're going to have to be accountable, responsible, for anything that goes afoot. I had a question on the violations and penalties, Aaron, on page 38. The first paragraph, it says any person violating any provision in this chapter shall be for each violation guilty of a misdemeanor, punishable by a fine up to $500, 6 months. That any such, however, provided that any such violation may be charged as an infraction. So can the council determine that a misdemeanor, which would carry this weight of a violation penalty, can only be an infraction? Do we have
Yeah.
that?
Yes, misdemeanors can be reduced to infractions.
Okay. Oh, that was- You want to go into any detail? I'm kidding.
You have a great point about the blue oak, and probably there are some other points about some other trees, but we don't know what any of them are, Susan. So I'm kind of with these guys. let's move it to the planning commission and let them determine this. And it shouldn't, they don't have to become arborists either. We have the same kind of trees in the general area. We could look at, other people's successes and mishaps. But back to the paragraph that Julia was looking at, I had a big highlight on there too. Not infractions versus misdemeanors, but that's not enough money.
Yeah, I agree with that.
$500 might be worth paying rather than dealing with the inconvenience of having to go through the permit and getting the
Right.
permission and
So-
not doing whatever you want.
So something Derek and I have been discussing, like after this meeting, we'll do some more research, but many cities have a fine, like the $500 plus, you have to pay the replacement cost. And so I've seen that in a lot of ordinances. We got to figure out how that works.
Right.
And that
Legally.
includes labor too, correct?
Yeah, and again, that would be if somebody very purposely killed or removed a tree without a permit. There was a definition in there of, I forget what it was called, willful destruction, or it's like you poison a tree and then you say, oh,
Right.
it's dead, so I get to take it down.
Right. Yeah.
That's different than coming to the city and saying, this poses a danger to my house. And then we're like,
Exactly.
okay, go ahead.
Right.
I would hope that it would be an amount that's truly prohibitive, so it's not just kind of an ordinance that has no teeth.
Or like you're saying, a fine and then an action. You have to
Correct.
replace it or do something. But beyond that, wanting to emphasize that I think the penalty should be higher. I'm all for sending this to the planning commission, and the planning commission may get it and have a couple planning commissioners that are into this, and they might want to form an ad hoc with some people from the community. And, they can do that. Yes. If this is too big of a bite, like this. So that we can continue our discussion. That's kind of where I'm sitting.
Here.
Oh, you too, Julia,
Yes.
Dan,
Yep.
Susan? You have
What
more?
I have
Open it to the
one
public.
one more that I'd like to see before we pass it on is with regard to the any tree species other than a native oak having a trunk diameter of at least 24 inches. I would like to see that drop to 12 because I was just seeing a redwood in
Yeah.
town that was, gosh, like 100 feet
I-
tall that was only 12 inches diameter.
That you're looking at R4. Under
Uh,
protected tree, any species other than a native oak having a trunk diameter of at least 24 inches or greater on residential property.
yeah, I would love to see it be 12.
So it would be the same as the 3, any species other than native oak having
Yeah.
a trunk diameter on non-residential property. So just we would make
Yeah,
that one.
that would be great, I think.
Okay.
No, I see. So it matches. Before we sent it on, Susan, did you want to make the 6 inches, 4 inches, or do you want to let them take a look at that?
I would like to make a whole separate line for blue oaks because they grow so slowly.
Are you sure that none of these other things grow that slowly?
I can't be sure of that. I certainly will look into that, but I know that, yeah, that's the one that.
Right. But
And when I
because we
did the
don't-
rough looking at oaks for planting, I don't remember any of these sticking out as super slow growing, but I would certainly look into that and pass on that information.
So right now, just, okay. Can we do that, Erin?
So blue oaks will be a different number, smaller number 4, but we'll look also.
Well, even though 4, I mean, if they're like a 10-year-old tree, that's gonna take probably. So if a 10-year-old tree could be less than 2 inches, maybe it needs its specific line.
I just like people are just gonna take their little chainsaw or just snap that thing in half if they don't want it. I
Yeah,
feel
well,
like
I'll
it's
be
gonna
looking around
you'll-
town, I'll be like,
I'm just afraid
I'll
that's
be
gonna
the
be
oak
very
police.
hard to enforce because no one is gonna be able to tell it's gone,
well,
really.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, things happen.
Yeah.
Trees will get cut down under the radar, but I think as a
'Cause-
precedent and someone that's like, cause I could have moved here from the city and been like, oh, the tree will grow right back and not known. So if I came downtown and said, oh, what are the rules? And then I become educated
Yeah.
and protect that. Cause I mean, they're just such beautiful trees. They're really heritage oaks. There's not very many of them.
Yeah.
It's a great point that you make, and I appreciate that. And I appreciate what Susan's saying also, though, that we're going to go to this trouble to provide an ordinance. Let's use it as an educational opportunity as well, so that when people come for the permit thing, they understand what's around them and how long it took. And,
Yeah. No, I agree.
it's just, it's a long-term deal, but
Can we have pictures?
Well, and they might get the permit, you know,
Right.
Yeah.
it's just saying they have to apply.
Yeah.
And then also it would help maybe in future development that people would be mindful what kind of trees it
Yeah.
is. Because life is busy.
But back to kind of the bigger question, if we're gonna pass this on, is it right to go through and strike and put in? I think it's too confusing to send this to the planning commission and ask them to do the work and to research the trees and to, set these parameters, except for these couple places where we're setting
on
them.
that. Uh-huh.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So like my question with the blue oak, that's very true. But since we don't know if some of these other trees are the same, I'm not sure we should make a change to one because it almost indicates that the other ones we think are fine.
Well,
So either we pass it on or we don't.
I think
pass
we're
it on.
just taking your comments and they'll be
Oh, okay.
discussed.
And I'm happy to look up the growth habits of all of these. That would be a fun lesson for me.
Well, you should, and then you should give them to the planning commission. Totally.
It'll keep you busy,
go.
Susan.
Something like sick.
Before you
I'm
guys,
gonna put it there.
wrap it up, maybe we should just see if anybody from the public wants to.
We
come.
will. I forget this time. Are we good for now?
We're good.
Yeah.
Look at Dan's face. He's not ready.
Well, there was, I forget. Oh, I just wanted to acknowledge that the permit process and all that stuff made perfect sense to me, and I appreciated that. Most of these, did. I mean, Tom, I didn't mean to infer earlier that you pulled this stuff out
No,
of
no,
the
no.
ether.
We
But-
did skip over some important things. I mean, there are valid reasons to remove trees and those are in there.
And they're in there, and I
You know,
appreciate
it
that.
Threatens the
Absolutely.
house or
Right.
it's dead.
And it
all
made
kinds of things.
sense, and it
Yeah.
was reasonable.
That's what I found.
Yeah.
I noticed the changes from last time for sure. There's been
Yeah.
thought in this. Okay. Are you guys ready to open it up to the public? Anyone in the public care to comment on the tree ordinance? That's what I get for remembering. Okay. So did you want a motion to pass this on with our comments? That sound right, guys?
All right, I move that we pass this ordinance on with our comments from this evening and notes on to the planning commission for feedback to come back to council.
And Susan's help.
Yes.
You're going to help, you might as well second.
Second.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Second. I was just wondering why the internet's not all working.
Vice Mayor Cirque,
Aye.
Councilmember Feist,
Aye.
Councilmember Reardon.
Aye.
Councilmember Swift absent, and Mayor Gunselman.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Good night.
Okay, Mason, you're up.
I think she wants to get up.
Thanks, Aaron, for everything.
Yeah, so Mason and I worked on this pretty hard. I hope it was an informative report. Once Mason gets set up, he's going to go through the base case. And again, and I'm sure he's going to say this as well, but the base case is really not meant to be like our default budget. It is kind of a fully loaded budget with, replacing our vehicles on a regular schedule, doing capital projects. And, that base case is kind of, it eats into our reserves every year. It's not our recommendation. We just wanted to show you what that looked like. So you want to jump in?
Yeah. So, we do this exercise every year. I think it's important for us to just as we get into budget development season, just how tight the general fund is. I know it's not a mystery to any of us, but I think this is a stark reminder of just what a little change can make a big impact to the long-term sustainability of the general fund. And it's, again, not an issue that's new to us. In this base case that we are reviewing here today, there is a certain level of capital that we assume would, we would do. But as you can see, towards, I think it's towards the bottom of the report. Yeah, so it's page 65 of the packet.
I mean, if you want to go through this.
Oh, we want to do that? We can do that. Yeah. UAL's a great story. So
Well, now
wait a
it's a
minute.
color.
UAL, so well, there is a positive here. So I know in the past couple of years we've looked at this and the curve did not look optimistic.
Right.
That curve has been just increasing to an alarming degree. And staff, we've made some efforts, and combined with the efforts that we've made with the bargaining units to help level out how much we pay versus how much they pay on normal costs, as well as performance in the last few years from CalPERS. They had a rough year, but they've had some pretty good years as well. We don't see those good years immediate impact, but over the long run, it does make an impact. And I think we're starting to kind of see those earlier years. This curve is starting to flatten out a little bit. So that's good news. We're kind of can see a light at the end of the tunnel soon. And again, this is something that every city has to deal with. This is not just us.
Yeah.
Some cities are much worse than us.
Again, I think this is actually very positive. If you remember last year, this curve was steeper. So again, partnership with our unions who have picked up more of a contribution, it's really helped.
Yep.
And then again, just naturally over time, more the classic plan is people are retiring out. So as it shifts to PEPRA, this curve will bend down, which means it will be paid off in 30 years or whatever the time takes. But what you want to see this is getting flat and then starting to decrease.
Right.
So,
And I know we've also talked about this before in the past, but originally CalPERS, their assumption for their returns was greater. And so when they reduced their expected return, which models their actuarial reports, there was a spike in this because it's statewide. And so just, I think it was like a 0.2 or 0.3 lower return expectation just made the UAL for everyone go up because they were saying we don't expect to make as much as we had originally anticipated.
Right.
That risk, they could do that again. People still say it's a little high. But we just don't, that's uncertain. We can't say right now whether or not that would happen. But there are professionals out there that do think that their rate of return assumptions are still quite high. So just something to keep in mind as well.
About how much of our budget percentage wise a year do we spend on this, or do we chip away at this with?
so UAL payment is how much?
The total UAL payment or just general fund?
Well, yeah, this is only looking at general fund, but general fund, I guess.
I mean, it's probably like $200,000.
Yeah.
And that's not including
That's not including the wastewater
wastewater
side.
and yeah.
No, I mean, yeah. So
And is that including the section 115 trust?
no,
No.
no.
Okay.
So that's designed.
Huge amount of our budget.
Oh yeah, it is for sure. And the scary when it's getting a little more optimistic as the curve bends down, but it's still growing. I mean,
Right.
that's the reality is it is still growing. So normal costs on that graph, they're not as going up as fast as the UAL is. The normal costs have been pretty flat, but it's the UAL that continually makes that curve go up.
Claire mentioned the 115, and Mason, just since we're on that subject, somewhere it talks about the CalPERS recommendation to invest 50% of excess funds into the 115 this year. It says that we want to invest 50,000. Is that 50% of the excess funds?
It's a budget item that we had in the budget for $50,000. I wouldn't say that that's what we're expecting to have as.
I mean, Mason and I have talked if we're doing well, we would stick with the budget.
Okay.
We're going to make a call. Like if we're pulling from reserves, we may not make any
I see.
deposits this year.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You just answered the question.
Yeah, so I want to talk about, and so this is also a major driver for expenses for us. We've seen some serious increases from county costs. And, you know, for a while there, they were pretty flat. And I think in the last, I mean, since I've been here, we've seen some pretty drastic jumps, particularly dispatch has been a big one. And then the animal control was also, I mean, in terms of dollars, not as big of a spike as dispatch, but still going from pretty much no fees associated with the service for our citizens to going up to $38,000 is a large jump. And with no change in service. So we negotiate with them each year on this item. They aren't really willing to budge a lot of the time. And, you know, it's something that I know Chief and Tom talk to them, especially this time of year. It's a big discussion item but as we go into budget development, because they're doing the same thing as us.
And I just learned about another charge that we get from the county from another department. So it's not all police. So
No.
yeah, we
Yeah,
need to,
there's some small ones. So like,
not, that's, yeah.
I mean, so we never used to get charged for the county assessor and property tax fees. Again, it's relatively small. I think it's $20,000, but it used to be $400 or
Mhm.
something.
Yeah.
And so the last couple of years, again, the county is finding ways to push costs off to the city. And this is really just say, you know, these are kind of exterior costs that we don't have a lot of control over.
And are we noticed of those, or we just get a bill, or we just find it in the bill? So in terms of the property tax, were we notified it was going to be 20,000 instead of 300 or whatever it was? Or was there just 20,000 less dollars in our payment?
No, so originally when I first started, what would happen is when we get our semi-annual property tax payments, they send me a detailed breakdown of what the total dollar amount is made up of. So some of it delinquent sewer, some of it is secured property tax, unsecured property tax, delinquent property tax, blah 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 blah. Down the line you go. Towards the end, there was an administration fee section where it had a reduction in amount. Usually it was, I think I remember it would be like $150 for one, and then $150 or $200 for the next one. So first year I remember seeing that. Then last year, didn't really notice it, should have, to be honest, but got a letter from them saying, you know, the Board of Supervisors has approved us to charge cities for our services to administer and manage the property tax payments. And it was a much larger bill. Well, in my mind, I remembered, well, yeah, they bill us for this every year. It's normal. But this year when I got it, I said, well, hang on a second. I don't remember it being that much. And so I went back and I looked at the old records from 2 or 3 years ago, and I said, well, yeah, that's what I remember seeing it. And then I looked at the new breakdown that they still send. That column is removed. So they removed it from that, and now they send an invoice saying this is how much you're paying us for administering your property taxes. The Board of Supervisors said that this is okay, which I would imagine was originally okay since they were billing it for us before. It was just a much less amount.
Well, there was state law passed a couple of years ago that said counties can bill for
Offload
these services. So they are.
So again, my point was there's no reason to not expect these things to keep coming. And we had this discussion when we were talking about the police budget last meeting. And you know, what the best way is to advocate for ourselves and keep an eye on these. And Mason, thanks for finding that. And I'm sure you've got your eyes open.
So my question is, and kind of dovetail in with Claire and these thoughts of the increases, you know, to go for the animal control for $700 to $37,000 to 39. Two questions. What confidence do we have that it's not going to take another big jump to, and then my second question is, our cities can form any type of alliance and approach the supervisors and say, you're killing us? How much camaraderie communication takes place amongst the cities to be able to say, there's got to be a slowdown, there's got to be some type of response?
Yeah, I mean, I,
Again, I think you were at the last meeting, right? I mean, it's a political issue, right? So
Uh-huh.
I think we all, I can bring it up, but you guys have to bring it up as well, that with our supervisors.
The city managers are still meeting, right?
We actually haven't met in a while, but I mean, yeah, we complain at the county, but that doesn't do much, like all of us. And again, these individual things, we don't have to pay them for animal control. We can try to farm our own, but it's going to cost us more, and that's kind of where they have us.
So, but do we actually use for the year 2025, did we actually use $38,000 worth of services?
well, so here's how it works.
Yeah, because it's like $2,800.
Yeah, I know,
cat
but
or something, right?
That's what I'm saying. How
A resident
more expensive
with
for-
no oversight or control of us, and a resident can bring an animal or report an animal from on a street within city limits, and either animal control person will come out and pick up that animal, or they will receive it at the counter as a, I don't know what you'd call that, a surrender. $800 for
To
each
that
animal,
kitty.
no matter what the nature of the collection of the animal is, whether they went out and picked it up and used their vehicle with their own gas, or the resident themselves drove there and handed it to the person at the counter. It's 800 and something dollars an animal. So if someone surrenders a litter of kittens, you can only imagine how much that's going to cost.
Right.
And we have no control over that because it's any resident can go and use the service.
But in
So-
terms of budget versus actual, what is the real number so far?
This is the actual, I think the
Yeah.
budget was 42.
Okay.
So Tom and Chief have meet with them about this, and they have established a cap. So if we hit the cap in December and people keep bringing in the animals, the agreement is they will not charge us past that cap.
And that cap is what, December 1st
No, that's just an example of if we
at any point?
it's well, it's for the fiscal year. So the cap is from July to June. Yeah.
So since this
They
started,
came, remember, Julia, were you on the council, Dan and Susan, when they came and
Said they were going to do that.
explained their,
Yeah.
no, they
Yeah.
stood up there for hour and a half, and Jim did a great job, questioning everything, but in the end, we still ate it, and I know Chief works on it diligently, but I think that it's our job to continue to bring up, I think, the word in some of these cases is double taxation, because would a county residents have part of their property tax deducted for an assessor's fee?
so, and again, I think what we want is just some predictability.
Right.
Yeah.
We just don't want the rapid, large increases. It's,
With
we
no,
all understand inflation and that kind of
And
thing.
also to establish communication and a rapport so that, because doesn't the county get the predominant part of the property tax?
yeah.
And sales and all of Martell.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that it just needs to, and
That's the double
I
taxation.
don't know if the best thing is to have an ad hoc committee for, I don't know that us each going independently to the supervisor meeting is really going to work, but it just seems like there's something wrong.
Well, if, like Tom indicated, it's now legal to do it. If I'm working for the county and I'm trying to balance the budget, my question is, what can I do legally? And these are my options. I'll take that. And if it means raising prices to the city, if that's my job, that's exactly what I'm going to do. So I get it, and it's frustrating. And, is there a double taxation issue going on? I don't know. I'm not a lawyer, but these are hard times for everybody. I don't know, Susan, how to bend that arc. They're going to do what they have to do to balance their budget.
Well, I guess Tom said it though, it's political, so
Yeah.
maybe does it take?
Some pressure,
Yeah.
just continue.
When is the cap decided? I mean, we had a cap of 43,000 that was decided. So when will next year's cap be decided?
I'm not sure.
I mean, they're working on their budget now. I haven't heard anything about animal
Yeah.
control. I
Okay.
think since they put in this new charge, I don't know, but I think the other cities have been managing well too, but we've been managing it to keep it under the cap.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
But so we wait for their budget to form our budget.
Right.
At this point.
That's
Yeah.
what I-
so again, that's just an example of an external cost driver that's been difficult to deal with.
Yeah.
So again, this is just the overall summary of this base case.
Yeah, in this base case, similar as previous years, we assume a conservative rate of growth for a lot of the revenue streams that we see year over year. So 2 to 3%, property tax, sales tax, TOT, TUT now. That wasn't a consideration before, but now it is. And expenditures, we do our best to be realistic about what we can expect going forward. Insurance, our insurance that we provide to our employees, I mean, it's been going up 10% a year. Now, our costs for that are capped based on what the MOUs allow us to offer as a cafeteria plan.
Right.
But it's not realistic for us to just allow the employees to eat that cost year over year forever, and then their paychecks get smaller and smaller. I mean, there is a balancing act we have to think about there.
Yeah.
And we upped our contribution to the cafeteria plan on
Right.
on both of the MOUs we signed
Yeah.
last year.
Yeah. So that's sort of that reality we need to keep
Exactly.
in mind. We can't
Yeah.
just keep it stagnant forever while these keep going up 10%.
And in that base case, what are you using for the capital outlay estimates?
So we're using, we assume some vehicle replacement, smaller park stuff, not everything. That's just, I mean,
I think it was about 200,000 of the streets per year.
that sounds right.
Maybe, and it went up. with
Okay.
It's
inflation,
growing.
like-
Yeah. Just like everything else, it grows.
Couple $100,000 or
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, at the high level, if you think about it, again, our revenue is pretty anemic, and that's really the problem.
Yep.
So across the board, property tax, sales tax going up 2 or 3% a year. And we've talked about some of these categories, highlighted categories that are of expenses that go up at a faster rate.
Yeah.
So we could, and we have a scenario here where we just say, defer everything, don't work on any projects. And we can kind of make the budget work. It's kind of break even, but
But then
fundamentally-
everything breaks the next year.
Yeah. But that's kind of the way we've run the city. We've deferred a lot of projects, and
And
then we get a
maintenance.
grant or something, we do a project.
Mhm.
We can do that. And, I don't want you guys to panic, but we can
Right.
do that. We can manage to our revenue. But we just want to highlight that, it's a revenue problem, really, that our revenue is not growing at the pace that expenses are growing.
And yeah, and I will also want to reiterate that passing this transaction and use tax alleviates some of the capital demand. We can use that money for that, but I mean, the operations are just getting expensive. We looked at the UAL, we talking about the benefits, talking about the payroll, the TUT. I mean, the way it was put on the ballot measure is not meant to address those, but they are not going away. So, I mean, it's true. We have a new line of revenue to help with the capital, but we pigeonholed that revenue to tackle the capital, which is great, but we do still have these operational costs that just keep, yeah, it's not going anywhere.
So I hope you guys read through all these scenarios, and we'll go through these pretty quickly because I know it is getting late.
No.
We talked about the Amador City police contract, and so this is the same as the base case, but with Amador City. So it's a relatively small amount of revenue. It's another like net $85,000, but it cuts our deficit in half, and it's a noticeable impact.
Yeah.
I guess.
And that's doing the same capital outlay.
Right. And then, again, I just wanted to show what this would look like. So this was a dispensary. You use very conservative numbers, based on what research has been showing us it's reasonable to expect. So it started off with $1 million of sales and grew to, I think it was 3 million. I don't have the report in front of me, but
I just want to, if I
Yeah.
can, or go ahead and finish. Then I have
yeah.
comments.
So again, not even taking like optimistic look, the additional tax plus the community fees are significant. So again, just trying to model that and having a model where if we do go further down this process, we could plug in maybe some more realistic numbers and see what that looks like. But this was really just meant to say, just take the most conservative approach. We start to actually build up a surplus.
I just have concerns with the number used in a conservative approach, and just doing the math. I think I find doing the math at even a 5% return from the dispensary is still significantly less than the numbers here. And the required sales to generate those numbers is very, very, I think, overly optimistic. So I would, I know this, I don't want to get off topic or off agenda, but I find that the numbers that were used in this are not realistic in sense of the actual money that would most likely come back to the city.
Yeah, so I'd like to know, what numbers you're thinking, because
Well, I'm looking at projected sales, the $10 million a year is going to take. Even here it says suggested fees as high as 10% and gross revenue of $10 million. 10 million.
that's not what was used. So that's what I'm saying.
This is
Yeah.
$6
No,
million
I'm-
dollars and
So
5%.
I'm getting there. I'm just putting that in the
Yeah.
context. So, and then the revenue ramps up over 3 years, 5%, I think is still relatively high to be consistent annual, given the information from other dispensaries who have dropped from 7 to 5 to 3%.
Yeah.
So that's why I think these numbers are inflated and not a reliable source for
So-
the scenario as
Yeah.
it's presented. That's my opinion.
Yeah, so just to tell you where these are coming from, I mean, the state tracks this stuff really closely. You look at Calaveras County, if you look at like sales per county, I think going up to 6 million over 3 years is not an aggressive forecast. And again, it ramps up slowly. So I have pulled up the table. It was 2, 4, and then 6.
So then I guess the discussion of a 1-year trial period really isn't part of the discussion at all.
I'm not sure.
Or
I know what I
Embark.
mean.
Embark was presented as a 1-year trial. So I guess the 1-year
So that would be
trial.
the first year, the 2 million, right? And you decide if you want to continue or not. A lot of these, most of these agreements are public. So looking at agreements in California,
Mhm.
again, the 5% seems relatively low for the fee. And then there's the sales tax on top of that. Again, on cities where there are multiple dispensaries, those rates have gone down, but we're not talking about, multiple dispensaries. So, even if you cut the revenue below this, it still turns around the city budget overall. So,
Over a long
and you could
over a long
substitute,
term.
well, almost immediately, I think. And yeah, and again, you could substitute, if we could find another kind of business that generated this kind of revenue, the point is,
Right.
some kind of economic development will have a substantial impact.
Right.
So I think we've never done this up here for a reason, but the other kind of economic development would be building, housing. Sort of, though, you go round and round, and it seems like everyone in California has consistently found that housing doesn't make, pays for itself. It doesn't make money, but the people in the place due to the housing is what makes money. So, again, it's any new revenue is going to require some sort of change, whether it's more people living here or whatever the change to the dispensary is, or the change that serving Amador City as our police department is. But I think my question is, we can't really build one of those and again, these are just scenarios. They're possible scenarios. So your question about whether it would be a 1-year trial, I don't think that's relevant. We're looking at numbers. What if this happened, right? What if this happened for this number of years? Could we do what if we had 500 houses? What if we had
could, but
200
I
houses?
think I have seen reports that, yes, you get one-time impact fees,
Right.
but a residence in terms of the services they take from a city are usually negative.
Yes, that's
right?
what.
And again, we don't, most of the sales taxes in Martell. So, it'd be a complicated model, but
People would live here and use our services, but still buy elsewhere, which is the scenario we
Yeah.
already have.
right.
And also that project's been on the table for over 20 years.
Well, we're just talking what ifs, but
But I know, but that's not what if, like that group is not here today moving forward.
right, that's not a,
It's just it's a complicated analysis. And again, you get that boost of the one-time impact fees, but it's an ongoing population you have to serve.
and they're still spending their money elsewhere.
Right. I mean, if we could get a big car dealership, or we could get a big store of some kind, or some kind of employer.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's the kind of control.
The Costco.
Yeah.
I mean, there is, if you have that kind of growth, you also have those people, you have the potential for growth within your city of the people that move there as well. I mean, there is that potential. You have people that move in, they say, I like this town. I want to develop it as a new resident. I want to leave a mark on it. Maybe they do some economic development because you just have more people there.
Sure.
I mean, that is a potential. You can't guarantee anything, but that could be a ripple effect of increasing your population. You just have development naturally that way through economic development by building houses and
Especially in Sutter Hill. If we had more houses built here, we would likely attract more businesses in Sutter Hill. And if we had a busy business in Sutter Hill, we would likely attract even more businesses in Sutter Hill.
Yeah, I
So,
think it's kind of like
outside of the
positive
downtown.
feedback cycle, like you get one and then it just kind of starts to snowball hopefully into something that's
There isn't a whole lot of economic development that can happen right in downtown except for tourism, which we're doing a bang up job, trying to create as much tourism as we can, but there's just a natural boundary there.
Well, hold on then, because I don't think we've done really much anything to encourage tourism. I mean, I think we have the Great Duck Race. I think the Public Works is getting more cohesive and keeping the town, but really fundamentally, have we done any sort of marketing campaigns?
I think it's been real good.
I think it's much
the new marketing campaign.
bad.
Yeah.
I drive back and forth through half a dozen times every weekend and there's nowhere else to park. It's full. If we had some more revenue and we could expand something like parking,
Right.
But
But the marketing thing, Susan, isn't it? I mean, it's in our packet, the number of hits and likes and all that kind of, every month.
Well,
That's
I don't think that we've done enough in my mind. And I think a 2% growth on sales tax, I think that there could be a lean into that. Just wanted to.
Yeah.
mention
And
that.
again,
I think that the sales tax numbers too, if we look at downtown, we have to remember that our sales tax contribution for Main Street is a small percentage of
Right.
that overall sales tax.
right. I was just going to say, I mean, again, great. We have a lot of tourists. A lot of the businesses downtown don't generate a lot of sales tax. So we just got to keep that in mind. We're talking about, we need businesses that sell a taxable product that is significant.
Right.
TOT tax, I think, is a more significant.
Yep.
We make.
But we would need,
That's a tourism
significantly more
indicator.
beds, like
Yeah,
a big
if we
hotel
could-
or something.
Yeah.
Fill the beds more.
Just again, this last scenario, this was just to show you guys, if we take out things and we're more opportunistic, we only do projects when we get funding. Again, we do a Measure P, we can do street projects, save up money there. This is essentially break even. I mean, there's errors in the forecast and stuff, so it's goes slightly negative, slightly positive, but I would just look at this as the break even scenario. And really, I think that's it. We just wanted to kind of show you guys this kind of 5-year plan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For the budget.
Bolts that are are to
Coming.
in the following.
Well,
that are
like
coming.
I started, this is nothing new to us. We live in this. This is our existence. It's been our existence for a while now. We've just learned how to navigate it every year. It's different every year. Situations are different. Like 5 years ago, we weren't worrying about animal control fees, and we weren't worrying about, but it develops, and
Right.
we are nimble, and we have to be scrappy. So it's just an exercise to just remind you, we can figure out ways to maybe navigate it better every time, but
Well,
there's things that pop out at us that we're like, whoa.
to a point. I mean, we just went through a pretty rigorous look at the police budget, and a lot of that was driven by me. And we found that there is nowhere else to cut costs. It's as lean and mean as it can get. So you're right. We have sustained ourselves and been scrappy for a long time, but at a point, we will have to cut services unless there's
we can
new
generate revenue. Yep.
Yeah.
I'm really glad we did look at that police budget too, and we know that that is
Fine tooth comb, and there's nowhere else to save any money.
Do we have any projection, going back to the police and back to Amador City, and maybe I'm off, about any resolution on their behalf?
Yeah, they had to cancel their council meeting, so they haven't had that discussion yet.
It's tomorrow night, I think.
Okay.
Okay.
This is a little tangential, but we are missing a building in town. Is there at some point, anything the council can do to
I don't think that's part of
fix
this.
that?
Oh, you
Well, I mean, it is like a revenue loss not to have the building. Maybe we can just put it on the agenda for another meeting, but.
Yeah, it kind of spans a couple of things. Talking to the property owner about redeveloping that property, trying to make it less of an eyesore now. Right. So,
Which we are making steps towards. I mean, visitor centers are working on that.
Do you guys have any other comments on this? And I'll open it up to the public. Public, any comments on the?
Good info. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, both of you.
Thank you, Mason.
I think it's just important. It's kind of like a sobering, I would call it sobering. I mean, it is, it's not like we're like have all this money that we don't know what to do with. It's more of like, how do we navigate this space? And we just mentally prepare ourselves for that.
It's not really an annual sobering moment, though. You kind of do it every month, Mason, just to.
That's true. This is just really just get your
This is
the
just a big
headlights.
one.
Presentation.
The public have any comments on the long-term forecast? Nope. Okay. All right, then moving on. Mayor and council member reports. Dan? Julia?
None.
I'm kind of up to my eyeballs in the duck race.
You're up to your bill.
We are, though, Susan and Mason was alluding to that. And I think Lisa spoke here before, Lisa from the Visitor Center. The Visitor Center designed some banners to put on the wall around the palace, or the fence around the palace. It's not a permanent solution, but it's just a little bit cooler. So the city and the city and the Community Foundation, the Native Daughters, I think, and the Visitor Center split the bill for that.
Yeah,
A couple of them are supposed to go up. One's supposed to go up.
They're
Yes.
ordered. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's should be happening. She might be waiting for weather at this point. I don't know.
yeah, it's true.
Don't shoot the messenger, but someone had an idea with that longer term if nothing comes of it, because it really is pretty dreadful to have that. Even if we put a cute little banner on it. I mean, it's been how long now that it's been burnt down? Someone had an idea to me that if they don't want to rebuild it, could be filled in and a park could be put there, and that would be darling to have a little seating area and trees, and it just long term. I mean, if I'm in a town, I'm like, whoa, what the heck? I mean, I would think there's ordinances at a point that you can't leave a lot empty on the main street.
I would think so. I think we've talked about that, and I don't think there's any recourse.
Well, I mean, it'll be code enforcement at a point because it's full of water now and attracts mosquitoes and,
Right.
you know,
Say we may be bringing some code enforcement ordinances back to you guys.
yeah.
That would be a good one, Derek, to make sure that they're looking at the 76 Main Street and what's going on down there.
Thank you.
Okay, is that it for council member reports? City attorney's report. Information and correspondence, we all have it. Any comments or questions? Are you looking?
Good info.
Dan's looking? No? Okay. Then we are adjourned.
Thank you.